Mother's Day is a big deal to almost every mother. Even the most understanding mother expects to be honored today with some kind of attention. And if you stop and think about it, it's easy to understand why, because this woman has sacrificed her body and time and energy, all year long. She helps, especially when kids are still in the house, clean the house, prepare the meals, wash the clothes, run a taxi service, oversee the family without much thanks year round. Often feel like she's taken for granted, I'm sure. And she is, because we just kind of expect that in our culture. She probably doesn't try to feel sorry for herself, but I'm sure she does sometimes. And then one day a year, we designated it, Mother's Day. And so for days in advance, at least in our house, we always reminded all the kids, different ways they could say thanks to mom just this once. And she hears the ads, she sees other mothers getting privileged treatment. And if you don't do anything, she feels even more unappreciated. She thinks, why bother? They didn't even notice. I'm just an unpaid servant. So Mother's Day is a big deal to mothers because it's a chance to show gratitude. And so if you don't have plans to show special attention to your mother and the mother of your children, get with it. The fifth commandment reads, honor your father and your mother. And to honor simply means to value, to respect, to pay tribute to. And that responsibility to honor your mother begins when you're a child and continues until, the day you die. You aren't exempt from honoring your mother if she's imperfect, or she gets on your nerves, or she lives 1,000 miles away. It's an ongoing command for all of us. And Jesus set the example for us and how we can honor our mothers at various stages of life. And so today, let's consider how Jesus honored Mary on several different occasions and be determined to follow him. So number one, obedience and maturity when you're a teenager. Obedience and maturity when you're a teenager. There's only one story about Jesus as a child, but it's an enlightening one. Jesus was 12 years old. He went with his parents to worship at the temple in Jerusalem for the Passover feast. It's an annual trip of almost 100 miles, and they would go in their large family packs. And if they took the normal route around Samaria, it could last, it could be 100 miles for them. And so they walked in these large groups, these larger family groups. It probably took 4 or 5 days, and it was a big deal. And so the boy Jesus had always proven responsible, as far as we know, as his parents trusted him. And so when the contingent from Nazareth started back home, somewhere along the line, I guess Mary was hanging out with the other moms and Joseph was hanging out with the dad. I don't really know how this happens, but you can imagine, parents, if you've been there, Mary assumed Jesus was with his father, and Joseph assumed he was with his mother. And at the end of the first day, when they set up camp, they discovered Jesus wasn't there. And the longer they searched, the more concerned they were. You can just imagine the panic beginning to build in Mary's heart. There are thousands of people in Jerusalem. Some of them aren't good people. What had happened to Jesus? And so in her mind, she had to picture him kidnapped, injured, or at the very least lonely and terrified. Here she had been entrusted by God with raising the Messiah, and she had lost him. And Mary and Joseph retraced their steps back to Jerusalem, and it didn't take a few minutes to find him. It took 3 days. Luke chapter 2. 3 days later, they finally discovered him in the temple, sitting among the religious teachers, listening to them and asking questions. All who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. His parents didn't know what to think. Son, his mother said to him, why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been frantic, searching for you everywhere. Why did you need to search? He asked. Didn't you know that I must be in my father's house? They didn't understand what he meant. Then he returned to Nazareth with them, and he was obedient to them. And his mother stored all these things in her heart. Jesus grew in wisdom, in stature, and in favor with God and all the people. See, Jesus was obedient to them. He knew he was gifted. He knew he had a special calling, even beyond his parents' understanding. He matured physically, socially, spiritually, intellectually. But in his teen years, it is clear that he was obedient to and respectful of his parents. And so teenagers and younger children, walk in the steps of Jesus and honor your mother by mature obedience. It's nice to give her a Mother's Day card or take her out or whatever, do something for her. But I guarantee you what would mean more to her is for you to be mature enough to obey her basic instructions 365 days a year. And the teenage years are usually the most difficult for mothers to endure. It's a period when you're asserting independence, struggling for control. Disobedience is so much easier because you're going places. Like, you're not with her all the time, and she's not there, and you can lie, and she can't tell. And you're growing intellectually, so you think you know best all the time. That's why someone said, adolescence is nature's way of preparing parents to welcome the empty nest. But when you obey, you bring honor to your mother. More importantly, you're being obedient to God. That's why in Ephesians 6, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. Notice there is a promise. If you obey your parents, it will go well with you, and your life will be a lot easier and happier if you obey. And so let's say, and I don't know what the current standards are, because my kids haven't been a teenager under 18 in a while, but let's say you're 16 and you go out with, what's a curfew these days? I don't even know. That's how no parent wants to yell it, because they don't want to be the higher one and force all the parents to have curfew inflation. But anyway, let's just say, for argument's sake, you go out with your friends on a Friday night, you're 16, your mom says, I want you home by 11, and you keep your phone on so I can reach you, and you stroll in at 11:47, your phone's at 8% on Do Not Disturb. She's waiting up. She's not calm at this point. She's not sleepy. She's waiting, and she's ready to pounce, okay? You didn't answer your phone. Well, it died. It didn't just die. You ignored me. Well, you don't trust me. Well, you haven't given me any reason to, right? And so you all go to bed frustrated. And the next morning, Saturday, it's like you're one day to sleep in. You hear the door, open to your room at 9 a.m. Like, get up. Your room looks like a tornado hit it. And you pull the blanket over your head. She comes back in at 9:10. Get up now, right? And then probably uses your middle name. That's what happened to my house. And you finally roll out at 9:30, grab your phone, scroll for a while. Then, you do the classic clean enough to pass inspection move. You shove things in drawers, under the bed, closet door closed by faith, right? And she walks in. This is clean. Oh, yeah. Well, turn your music down. I don't even have my music on, It's just not going well for your relationship. And so you spend the afternoon texting your friends, my parents are so strict, they don't get it, they're on me about everything. And then around dinner, you say, hey, some of my friends are going to go see a movie tonight, can I go? And I need $30. And your mom just looks at you. You came in late last night, you ignored me, you argued with me this morning, you didn't do what I asked, and now you want money and another night out. It's not going to go well for you, right? But just imagine a completely different version. Same Friday night, curfew's 11, you come in at 10:40. Your mom looks up. Why are you home early? Everything okay? Yeah, we were having lots of fun. I just figured I'd come home and hang out for a bit. Next morning, you're up before she asks. You make your bed. You actually clean your room, not the close the door and pray version, the real thing. You throw a load of laundry in. You maybe even empty the dishwasher without announcing it like you deserve a parade. And she walks by and she does a double take, like, who are you and what have you done with my child? Because the house feels different. Around dinner, you say, hey, Mom, some friends are going to a movie tonight. I'd like to go, but, that's really up to you. She says, no, I want you to go. Have fun, and here's extra money, right? Now, you're thinking that's probably not, that second version doesn't happen, and maybe that's fair, at least not perfectly. But here's the point. Life gets better when obedience isn't just forced, when it's willing, when it's thoughtful, when it does the little extra things. That's maturity. That's wisdom. That's what it means to honor your parents, not just doing what you have to do, but doing it with the kind of heart that reflects Jesus. Because Scripture says Jesus was obedient. Not just technically, not just when it was convenient, but in a way that honored his earthly parents and his heavenly Father. And when you live that way, it will go well with you. Number 2, respect and compliance when you're a young adult. Respect. Now, the next interaction we read about between Jesus and his mother is in John chapter 2. It occurs at the very beginning of his ministry. It's 18 years after the story we just read. A lot has transpired, but we don't know much of the story. We do know he grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. And he went through the same transitions that all of us do, okay? Like apparently his earthly father, Joseph, has died sometime during his teenage years because we never read about Joseph again. And so Mary is always by herself. And so the boy Jesus knew what it was to grieve and be lonely. Evidently, that's why he remained in the carpenter's shop until he was 30. He was providing for his mother and his younger siblings. And so the young man, Jesus, experienced manual labor. Like he knew what it was like to transact business and make ends meet. Like there's nothing that we experience that's not common to Jesus. But by the age of 30, Jesus turns over the carpenter's tools to his younger brothers. He gets baptized, announces the beginning of his ministry, and a few days later, Jesus and his family were guests at a wedding in Cana. And at the reception, which in those days could last like a week, the host ran short of wine. That's embarrassing. And so Mary wants to help her friends out. John chapter 2, verse 3. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." Now, I don't know about you, but like in my house growing up, my mom would make like the house is dirty. The dishes are full in the sink. That's not just like a statement of fact. That's a passive-aggressive request for help, okay? I don't know about you. And that's really what Mary is doing here, right? They're short of wine, and so he says, "Dear woman, why do you involve me? Like, why is that my problem?" Jesus is affirming his independence from his mother. Like he's not a little kid anymore. He's not bound by her wishes. Her agenda isn't necessarily his agenda. And so he says, "Hey, my time hasn't come yet. It's not time to disclose like exactly my purpose and identity." And yet his mother, what does she do? Does she go, "Okay"? No, she says to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." It's as though Jesus' mother said, "He can do anything. I have total confidence in him. He'll take care of it. Just do what he says." And so what's Jesus do? He responds with his first miracle, turning water into wine in response to his mother's requests. There will be times when you feel like your mother is interfering in your adult life. And I know if your mom's with you today, you can't, you don't want to nod your head, but I mean, we've all probably been there a little bit, I would think, most of us at least. You've completed school, you left home, established a family maybe, and yet your mother still tries to tell you what to do. Like, "You ought to look for another job, son." "Darling, are you eating out again? Like, why don't you move back here? Like, it's about time you have children. If you wait until you can afford it, you never will. Like, why did you spend so much money on a house? Like, don't you think she should have a sweater on? Don't make her eat that," right? And that happens not just when you're in your 20s. Sorry, Aiden, this will happen throughout your life. But for some, that continues throughout your entire adult life. Someone wrote, no matter how old a mother is, she watches her middle-aged children for signs of improvement. See, sometimes it's your mother's fault. She may be domineering, and you have to be mature enough to ignore it and go on. Sometimes it's your fault. You just need to establish your independence. Maybe you still act like a child around her, so she treats you like a child. Or you're still afraid of alienating her, so you allow her to manipulate you. You blame her, but it's really your lack of courage that's the problem. Maybe you need to have the courage to say, "No, Mom, we'll be home every other year for Christmas, because in alternative years, I'm going to be with the in-laws." Like sometimes when your mother seems to be interfering, she's right. Maybe she doesn't approach it as gently as you would like, but she knows what she's talking about. I mean, think how much more you know now than you did 20 years ago. Do you think you'll gain some more wisdom in another 20 or 30 years? Your mother has that kind of perspective of age and experience, and you should at least listen. I was blessed to have a loving mother. Mother's Day is a little hard because I wish she was here. But I remember a few years before she died, I was visiting Michigan. This is when we still lived in St. Louis, and I was married, and I think Reagan was already born. And so it's not like I was a teenager or a child. And so we were visiting from Michigan, and it was a little brisk out, and we were heading out to eat. And I came outside without my coat, and I got in the car, and my mom said, "Get your coat on, you'll catch a cold." I said, "Well, no, I'm fine, Mom. I'm not that cold." "No, you listen to me right now, young man. Get your coat on, and you'll freeze. It's like, Mom, do you know how old I am? Like, I think I can make that decision on my own. See, I wanted to be independent. I was an adult. I made those decisions every day in St. Louis, but now I was in Michigan, her home turf, and she said, get your coat on. And I said, no. And she just turned her head the other way, and even though she tried to hide it, I noticed that she had started to cry. Her baby boy was a man now. He didn't listen like he did when he was a mama's boy. So I went back inside and I got my coat. But my mom never told me to get my coat again. I was also blessed to have a godly grandmother. I wasn't raised in the church, even though my mother had been. And so my grandma lived with us since before I was born. And she always made it clear that she was praying for us, that we'd have a relationship with Jesus and be God-fearing churchgoers someday. And eventually her prayer request came true. But it took time. Some of you have godly mothers, but you've strayed from the faith she imparted to you. And she's always looking for some way to pull you back in. And one of the most selfish, hurtful things you can do is to ridicule her faith or belittle her counsel. I mean, in a way, you're blaspheming God and you wound the heart of your mother. If you have a godly mother who refuses to quit on you, like be grateful. It could be her prayers that make a difference in your life. Maybe you need to listen to her before it's too late. Jesus turned water into wine to help the host, but also to be respectful of his mother's desires, even though she was imposing a little bit. We would be wise to follow in his steps. Number 3, patience and tolerance when your mother is wrong. Patience and tolerance when your mother is wrong. Mark chapter 3, we read of an incident between Jesus and his mother where she was completely wrong about him. It says, Jesus entered a house, and again a crowd gathered so that he and his disciples were not even able to eat. When his family heard about this, they went to take charge of him, for they said, he is out of his mind. So Jesus' popularity is beginning to snowball. Rumors are circulating that he's the Messiah. Everyone's buzzing about Jesus. But when the family heard about what was taking place, they were disturbed. We read later that Jesus' younger brothers didn't believe he was the Messiah until after he had risen from the dead. It's sometimes hard for a family or friends to accept that someone close to them is special or has a unique calling in their life. Like, Marcus is a preacher? Are you kidding me? Like, I wiped his nose when he was 6. She's the governor of Michigan. I was in high school with her. I really was. And she didn't win the race for student council president. Like, she's the new principal. She's my cousin, and she was a terrible student. Matthew 13, coming to his hometown, he began teaching the people in their synagogue, and they were amazed. Where did this man get his wisdom and these miraculous powers, they asked? Isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother's name Mary? And aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? Aren't all his sisters with us? Where then did this man get all these things? And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, only in his hometown and in his own house is a prophet without honor. Jesus' own brothers were offended by the inference that he was the Messiah. His brothers thought, he's a good guy, but he's just a man. And so they came to take charge of him, for they thought he must be out of his mind. And they brought Mary with them. They must have persuaded her that Jesus' life was endangered somehow, because she went along with their efforts to rescue him. Maybe in her mind she was thinking, he's not taking time to rest enough or eat enough. Maybe he needs to come home and get a home-cooked meal. Mark chapter 3, then Jesus' mother and brothers arrived. Standing outside, they sent someone in to call him. A crowd was sitting around him, and they told him, your mother and brothers are outside looking for you. Who are my mother and my brothers? He asked. And then he looked at those seated in a circle around him and said, here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and mother. Now that seems like it's a rude rebuff, but Jesus really could have humiliated his mother in this moment. Like, everyone knew the stories. He could have really picked on her. Like, how did you get pregnant out of wedlock? Like, didn't you say an angel visited you? How many times did you whisper in my ear as a kid, like I was growing up and I was chosen by God? How can you let me down like this? But instead, he calmly stood his ground and affirmed that those who shared his convictions were his closest relatives. There may be times when your mother is wrong. When we're young, we idolize our parents and think that they're perfect, but then there comes a day when we discover our parents aren't. They're not perfect parents. They're not perfect mates. They're not perfect Christians. Someone said, the 4 people you have the most difficulty forgiving are your mother, your father, yourself, and God. Because we'll forgive strangers quicker than those closest to us because we're so hurt that they haven't met our unrealistic, often, expectations. And so often we go to the opposite extreme in our younger years, and we see them as total bunglers and ridicule or resent them. But maturity is when you forgive your parents for their fallibility, but still appreciate the contributions they've made to your life. Like, don't be bitter against her all your life and blame all your problems on your mother. Like, welcome to the real world. Forgive her. But don't allow her ongoing erroneous influence to divert you from walking in obedience to God. Like, there may be times when you have to admit she's just wrong. Maybe she doesn't share your spiritual values. Maybe she criticizes you for being baptized or picking a particular church or tradition or going on a mission trip or giving money to this charity or the way you raise your children. She thinks you're out of your mind. But Jesus set a positive example for how we should respond in that kind of circumstance. Don't let your mother's wrong opinions prevent you from doing what is right, but be tolerant, as patient as possible, knowing that in the end, truth prevails. Acts 1:14 reports that following Jesus' death and resurrection, it says, they all joined together constantly in prayer, along with the women, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and with his brothers. Like, Mary witnessed the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. She was there at the beginning of the early church. Her claims of a virgin birth and the promise of an angel were now proven to be true. She had to wait 33 years, but she had been vindicated. But when she was wrong, Jesus had been understanding and respectful. We would do well to follow in his steps. And then number 4, care and provision when your mother is in need. Care. John 19, Jesus shows another way to honor a mother. It says, near the cross of Jesus stood his mother. Now, she would be around 50 years old at this time, living alone as a widow. She had Jesus really young. When Jesus saw his mother there and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, dear woman, here is your son. And to the disciple, here is your mother. From that time on, this disciple took her into his home. See, at the foot of the cross were the 2 people Jesus loved the most, his mother and John, the beloved disciple. Jesus made provision for his mother to be cared for after he died. For some reason, his brothers and sisters weren't capable of taking care of her. We don't know why. Maybe they had too many children and their homes were too small, their income's too meager. We just don't know. But Jesus had the capability of caring for her. But John had the capability of caring for her and also shared her faith at that moment. And so Jesus entrusted to John the responsibility of caring for his mom after he was gone. Part of honoring your mother is to make sure that she's provided for when she can't take care of herself. Like, children have an obligation to honor their parents as they grow older, the best you can. And that might mean seeing that their needs are met in case, you should die before they do, as Jesus did. It might mean pitching in with resources so your parents can live the final years in dignity. It might mean showing tender love and care even when their health or mental faculties begin to fail. Leviticus 19:32, rise in the presence of the aged, show respect for the elderly, and revere your God. I am the Lord. So honor your mothers today. She deserves it for the sacrifices she made for you. If your mom isn't alive anymore, like mine, it's still a day for me to thank God for her, even though she wasn't perfect, but to give gratitude and thanks for all that she poured into me. Let me take a moment and close with this blessing. To those who gave birth this year to their first child, we celebrate with you. To those who lost a child this year, we mourn with you. To those who are in the trenches of little ones every day and wear the badge of food stains, we appreciate you. To those who experienced loss this year through miscarriage, failed adoptions, we mourn with you. To those who walk the hard path of infertility, fraught with disappointment, we walk with you, but forgive us when we say foolish things. We don't mean to make this harder than it is. To those who are foster moms, mentor moms, spiritual moms, grandmoms, we need you. To those who have warm and close relationships with your children, we celebrate with you. To those who have disappointment, heartache, distance with your children, we sit with you. To those who have lost their mothers this year, we grieve with you. To those who experienced at the hands of your own mother, we acknowledge your pain and pray for healing. To those who live through driving tests, medical tests, and the overall testing of motherhood, we are better for having you in our midst. To those who will have emptier nests in the upcoming year, we grieve and rejoice with you. And to those who are pregnant with new life, both expected and surprising, we anticipate with you. This Mother's Day, we walk with you. Mothering is not for the faint of heart. And we have real warriors in our midst. We remember you, and may God be with you. In Jesus' name, amen.